How to make money online as a stay-at-home mom. So I met Natalie Hodson when we shared the stage at Funnel Hacking Live, and one of the things I was so fascinated by is how she made over $3 million by selling ebooks. And I think what everybody wants to hear is, how did it all start? What gave you that belief? Was there a certain event that happened?
Not really. I always say I stumbled on it by accident. What happened is I was a stay-at-home mom and I gained 70 pounds when I was pregnant. I had two 10-pound babies, so my stomach was like way out here. And I really just started a blog as a way to keep me accountable. So it was like an online journal for me. And so I didn't actually tell anybody I knew in real life because I was kind of embarrassed by it. And I just started writing, and I like to cook. So I was taking the unhealthy meals that we normally ate and I was figuring out ways to make them healthy. And I started sharing my recipes on Pinterest and Instagram. And as I started just sharing things that I naturally liked to do, I started getting people that liked to hear about that. So they started following me on Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram. And then as I started building this following, I was like, I was a history major in college. I didn't know anything about internet marketing or ebooks. And I thought, I'm getting all this traffic, I should find a way to monetize this.
Let me just pause 1 second.
Yeah.
So, as a stay-at-home mom now, does that mean that they should be documenting taking the kids to school and they're cooking? Like, what made you get that initial first 500 subscribers? Like, so what happened then?
Yeah, so what happened at the beginning is I did this fitness challenge and I had really good results. And so it was just a challenge that I joined another influencer's challenge and I had good results. And so people were asking me, how did you lose the weight? What did you do? And so when I talk to other people, other moms, what I tell them is, what are things that people are already coming to you that you like to do that they're asking you questions about? So maybe you're really good at organizing your house or your pantry. And people are always like, how do you keep your pantry organized? Start sharing tips on that. Maybe people are asking you, how do you find time to run a marathon or train for a marathon? Start sharing tips on that. You look at your life and the interests that you have and the questions that people are already coming to you and asking you about, that's an interest that people want answers to. And if you have the answers, what I started doing is I just started sharing lots of good content, lots of good tips. And what happened
And that was to a blog?
It was to a blog at first, and then I got social media from it.
Okay, so step number 1 is determine what it is that you're good at, your passion, based on your life experience, your hobbies, and then start documenting it, whether it's on videos, whether it's on your blog.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like, I have a gal that I've coached, she loves scrapbooking. She loves it, and so she teaches other moms how to scrapbook. I have another mom who's like very, very passionate about helping elderly people, and so she started an ebook and created a course about preventing falls for older people. I mean, random things, but she said people were asking me questions on how I was doing this. And so that's what I would do is write out a list and say, these are the top 10 things that I'm probably good at that my friends naturally ask me questions about.
So I know from me personally that a huge milestone was when I made my first dollar. It gave me the belief that that's possible. Okay, so from step 1 in just documenting and writing and just sharing with others, what happens next? Should they create a product? What has to happen in between them?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing, like you said, is to learn, figure out, okay, how can I make money from this? My journey, what I did is at first, I started promoting other people's stuff because I didn't really have the courage to create my own stuff at the beginning. I would reach out to companies, things that I already naturally use. Like I had a protein powder that I really liked, and I would make a recipe and I tag them with the protein powder in the recipe. Or there's a brand of water flavoring that I really like. I would use that and I'd tag them in it and I'd tag them in the recipe and then I'd follow up. So here's a really good tip. On Instagram, there's no way to really shield your, I get messages from every single person that messages. And so now that I have a big following, a lot of times if it's just hey, your stuff's awesome, you don't really pay attention. But here's the best tip I have. If there's a company that you want to work with, send them a video DM on Instagram. I promise you they'll pay attention because all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is a real person, not just an Instagram account. And so today, to this same day, when somebody sends me a video DM, I always respond because I'm like, oh, cool. That person knows who I am and now I know who they are. So if there's a company that you want to work with, a lot of companies will give you an affiliate link so you can start there if you're too nervous about creating your own content. And then what happened is I was like, I'm making these companies all this money. I should just start creating my own products and keep 100% of it instead of just getting a 10 or 20% affiliate link. And so that's when I started creating ebooks.
I see.
Yeah.
So once you've gotten this initial following, the second thing you should be doing in order to monetize is to determine what are other products out there in the marketplace that people are going to buy. And these could be physical products on Amazon or other companies with their own in-house affiliate programs. Get in touch with them and start promoting their product. And eventually, when you get enough confidence to develop your own product, that's when you transition.
Yeah, and let's take a step back. So when I first started, I didn't know what the word affiliate meant.
Yeah.
So basically all that means is that there's a company that's selling a product and they're trying to get more exposure for their product. And so they'll come to you and say, okay, if you let your audience or the people that follow you, your friends, whoever it is, know about my product, we'll give you a 20% commission or whatever the number is, right? Sometimes it's lower, 10%, sometimes it's higher, up to 50%. And so that's what affiliate means, is it's just you marketing somebody else's product and they're giving you a cut for that. And the other thing to just know is that I probably reached out to 100 companies at the beginning and I maybe heard back from one. So don't be discouraged if you do a lot of reaching out and you don't hear back, because sometimes all you need is that first one to get that momentum. And I always say that taking any kind of action, even if it's imperfect action, is what creates momentum. So if you're feeling nervous or scared or stuck, just do something, start taking action, and that will give you the confidence to keep taking more action from there.
I think that one thing everybody suffers from is but it's just me titis.
Yeah.
Right? And that's certainly how I felt when I first started. Was there a certain incident that happened for you that gave you that initial belief that, wow, this thing is doable, wow, I can actually do it, it's real?
I would say what happened at the beginning is I was sharing very perfect stuff. I would push all my dirty dishes away to the side and only shoot a clean kitchen, or I would take a picture of a perfectly lighted plate of food, but my kids were running around screaming. And at the beginning that worked okay, but what I found is that people actually wanted, my audience, moms, they know that their kitchen doesn't look perfect and they wanted to see the real behind the scenes. So I started sharing that by accident, actually. And then what happened is that the more I started sharing the real stuff, it was like a magnet. People were drawn to that. So don't get me wrong, I still share really pretty plated stuff, but then maybe in the next post over, I'll show by the way, this is the mess that made this pretty shot happen. This was what it looked like this morning after we went to church. But this is also how I look, probably about 90% of the time before all the makeup and my hair gets. And people really connect with that. I think that especially on Instagram right now, we have a lot of perfect family bloggers and they share perfect families and perfectly posed images. And while that's nice and that can serve a role, I think what people really are craving is that connection, that real life connection. So for me, what happened is I made this one video. I actually was at an event and this girl came up to me and she was like, I could never look like you because I have stretch marks. And I was like, I have stretch marks? What are you talking about? She's like, no, you don't. I've never seen them in your pictures. I started to realize oh man, this image that I'm portraying is of perfection feels unattainable to other people. And so I went home that night and I just pulled out my camera and I filmed a video showing the real side of things. I walked around my house and I showed my picture frames that still have the stock photos in them, and I showed my stretched skin. And for me, that video went viral, and that's when I started to realize I believe that people really want that real authenticity. And I think a lot of times when we're first getting started, we think we have to look perfect, we have our stuff together all the time. And a lot of times we think, if I show what's really happening in the real struggles, people won't view me as an expert. But the truth is, people really want to see that entire journey. And especially at the beginning, if you're just getting started, it's the perfect time to document all this stuff, because later it'll be really fun to look back on it. And so at the beginning, I just started promoting other people's stuff. And then that gave me the confidence, okay, I can sell some things. Why don't I try creating my own products? And that's when I got the idea to write ebooks.
And it's so true, how I wish I had the initial videos of me when I was totally struggling on videos with 20 plus takes, doing it again and again, because those shots would have been priceless. I know that many times, one thing that I do have was one of the videos that I, when I was initially at this public speaking training thing and I was being destroyed on stage, that video is extremely powerful. So people want to see not the sizzle reel, but the real.
Yeah, people want to see that. And if you can document it now, like Peng said, it'll be super powerful later for you when you do have success. And I want you guys to know, like, you can see us sitting here on camera and talking. I was terrible when I first started, like terrible, but it's been thousands of videos now that I can talk comfortably on camera. So be really cautious of not letting yourself have imposter syndrome. Like, we had to start somewhere, and we did. We were both bad when we started, but we just kept going and kept going and kept going. And by putting in the reps, that's actually what made us better. It wasn't like having the perfect thing all the time. It was actually, most of our stuff probably was imperfect at the beginning. Mine still is. It's still not perfect. But it was that consistency of just trying and trying and trying again that worked really well.
So as a stay-at-home mom, where do we draw the line between doing what it is that we love doing and having an understanding if that is what the market wants, if the market is willing to pay money for that information, or if there's an economic demand for it? So you mentioned scrapbooking, right? Like, how do we know if it's going to be profitable?
So I always go back to that list of what are the common questions people are already asking you. One of the things I did at the beginning, I had a blog, so I looked at my Google Analytics and I said, what are my top 5 blog posts that people are already coming and wanting answers on? That's how I decided where I was going to make my ebooks. If you don't have that data, just look at what people are already asking you. And I got a really good piece of advice one time from somebody, and they said, you want to sell pain pills, not vitamins. Meaning, like, if somebody is in pain, they'll buy something from you to get that pain taken away, get that answer solved. But if it's just something that people feel like they can figure out on their own, they probably won't pay as much for that initially once they start to trust you and you have that first product. And so what I would do is I would, again, just start asking, ask your audience, ask on Instagram polls, ask your friends and family, like, what are you struggling with the most? I have a friend who did a really good job of creating courses teaching people how to organize their closets and their pantries. Look at, who's the gal that has a Netflix series now? I can't think of her name. Marie
Kondo, that's right.
Yeah, Marie Kondo. And all she does is teach people how to simplify and organize their lives. But look how wild that went. And so most of us would think, everybody knows how to organize closets, but that's not true. What you're good at, a lot of people might not be good at, right? And so it's really easy for us to think, oh, this isn't a big deal. I didn't go to college for this, or I didn't go to school for that. I didn't go to college for writing ebooks. I didn't go to college for fitness. But I learned that these were the questions that people were asking me about. And so what I did is I looked at that data and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to write content on. And you can experiment, like put up some posts, and the ones that get the most engagement, that's when you're like, okay, I'm onto something here. People want to know more about this. And then that's when you can write more content. But if you put something up and it's crickets, it's probably not the best content to create to sell.
So pain pills, what type of products do you have that fits in that category? Just to give them some ideas and insights on what they could be doing.
Definitely. So my #1 best-selling ebook is a product called Abs Core Pelvic Floor. So a lot of times after women have babies, if they laugh, cough, jump on a trampoline, sneeze, they'll accidentally pee their pants a little bit. That's a pain pill, right? It's embarrassing. Like, nobody wants to be peeing their pants. I thought that was just a part of motherhood. And so I partnered with a doctor who had just gotten her PhD in this area to write an ebook, and that ebook, it exploded. We put 150,000 women through that program in the last 2 years. And so that's a pain pill, right? People are like not necessarily in pain, in physical pain, but it's embarrassing. They want a solution quickly. Another example is I wrote a pregnancy trainer. So when women are pregnant, they want to know, how do I get rid of back pain? How can I stay as healthy as possible during my pregnancy? And then for me, it was the 4th trimester book, what I call the 4th trimester. So after somebody has a baby, what do you do? How do you start exercising again? How do you take care of your this new body that doesn't look anything like your body before? Those were my best-selling ebooks. And then the vitamins are the things I sell after. So I have like crock-pot cookbooks, and I have a membership site where people can get daily workouts and meal plans and things like that. But if that would have been, in internet marketing, we call it a front-end offer. If that would have been the first thing I sold, it probably wouldn't have been as good of a hook, because it's like, it's not going to stop them in their tracks and say, oh, I need that, right? And so for me, like if somebody were to come to me, in fact, right now, if you look at my laundry room, it looks like a bomb went off. And if somebody's like, I have a
When I walked through it, I was like, what happened here? There's this pile of mountain.
It's the mountain of laundry. And if somebody were to come to me and say, I have a simple system that lets you solve your laundry problems in 5 minutes a day, I'd be like, I want that answer, right? So find the problems people are having. For me, mornings are crazy in our house. I bet if you have kids and you're watching this, you're like, yeah, our mornings are insane. So if you can write like a simple 5-minute morning formula that will help reduce the chaos in the morning, that might be a good solution. So just giving some ideas here, but if you can really think like in your mom groups, what are the common things that you guys talk about and complain about? I know you can't write an ebook on like fixing your husbands, right? But let's say like what are the common complaints that people have? Try to come up with a solution. And then another important thing I want to point out is that sometimes you don't have to have the solution. You just have to find the people that do. So when I wrote my ebook, Abs, Core, Pelvic Floor, I wasn't the expert, but I partnered with an expert. I partnered with a doctor and we co-wrote the book together.
That's interesting because I want to play devil's advocate for a bit because I know that for many of you that could be watching this, you're thinking, that's the first one, which is, but I'm not an expert. So what if I created all these different things? Who's going to listen to me because it's just Peng Joon or just your name? So why would they buy from you? So what would you have to say to that for somebody that's watching this thinking, okay, all these strategies sound great, but even if I created it, nobody's going to buy from me because nobody knows who I am.
So for me, I am a perfect example of that. I am nobody special. I was a history major in college. I knew nothing about internet marketing. I didn't even have my personal training certification at the beginning. I went and got it online. But I just started sharing my real life stories and people related with that. And so that's what I would recommend is get that idea out of your head that you have to have all this education, because that stopped me honestly for a while. I was like, I'm not good enough. But the truth is, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't communicate it the right way, then it doesn't matter. It won't impact people. So take what you're already good at and start sharing that, start documenting that. And then if you need to find somebody to partner with, you can do that to add some credibility. And then the other thing that I would say is that if you look, I share 90% of what I share is really good free content. And so people keep coming back because they want to get those tips, they want to get those tricks. If I were just selling all the time, I probably would see a lack of engagement in my page, but because I share recipes all the time, I share hacks for getting knots out of my daughter's hair, I share, simple things like that, how to grocery shop on a budget. Because I'm constantly sharing good content, people keep coming back.
So here's what they're probably thinking next. They're probably thinking, okay, this sounds great, Natalie, but whatever market that I'm in, so laundry, sewing, knitting, if I were to do a search on Google or on YouTube, there are like 100,000 videos on that topic. So why would somebody pay me money when there's millions of information that a person can get for free?
Let's use a different analogy, for example. So what's something that we use and we pay for because we like that product, but we could get it for free? So
music. iTunes. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you really love an artist, right? You could go on YouTube and listen to it for free. But when I love an artist, I download their whole entire album. The Pioneer Woman is a great example. So her recipes are amazing. Like when I have friends come over for dinner, I always just make her recipes, even though like I have my own cookbooks and stuff because they're so good. If you go to her blog, 100% of her recipes are free on her blog. But guess what? Every single time she puts out a cookbook, I buy her cookbook. If you look in my office, I have every single cookbook she's ever released because I love her so much. I love her content. I love flipping the pages and seeing it. And so I don't want that to stop you by thinking, oh, there's too many people in the market, because you have a unique voice that nobody else has, right? I have a way of talking about things that nobody else can talk about in that way. There's a million other food bloggers, there's a million other moms out there, but for some reason people follow me because they like to hear it in my voice. I would really caution from like getting stuck in that imposter syndrome. It's normal to feel that way. I still feel that way. In fact, I just spoke at a big event this weekend and I was writing my bio thinking, I'm not good enough to be on this stage. And I had to talk myself out of it and think, Natalie, what are you doing? Come on, you are good enough to be on that stage. They want you there for a reason. And so you just need to kind of take those, and this is a weird trick, but it works for me. So sometimes when I have all those negative voices and the doubts start creeping into my head, I do this exercise. You might think this is a little weird, but it works. Is I visualize, I take them and I put them in a box and I put them on a shelf. And like I just try to get those thoughts out of my head and just say, no, I am good at this.
There are a lot of boxes there.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine it piling up like an Amazon warehouse?
One day you just like light it on fire, you know? I think it's really important to know, like, you have a unique voice. You have a unique voice. Like, you were just a video gamer, why would people listen to you? And it's because you have a unique angle that people want to follow.
To summarize this entire process, start documenting what it is that you're doing based on what the questions your friends are asking you, based on your life experience, based on your passion, based on what you love doing in life. Then number 2 is start learning to monetize by building your confidence by promoting somebody else's product first to eventually give you the confidence to start creating your own product. And finally, the messaging, being real, being authentic, showing your audience behind the scenes to what's actually happening and not just the sizzle reel, but the real reel. Am I missing anything?
I think that's it. And the only other thing I would add is that, you know, I look back 10 years ago and I'm so grateful that I just did it, that I just started, even though it was imperfect. And I wish so badly that I would have had a friend or a big sister or mentor tap me on the shoulder and say, Natalie, like, what you're doing is going to work. You can't see it now, and I know you can't, but in just a few short years from now, you're going to believe in yourself. You're going to be able to impact hundreds of thousands of women, and you're going to change your family tree. And I didn't believe that at the time. I just kept sharing and sharing content, and I hope that like we can be those people for you to know that like this will work, but you have to keep putting in the reps. You have to keep trying, and you'll try some things that won't work, and that's normal. Like we've tried lots of things that haven't worked, but you can't let that stop you. You can't be paralyzed by perfection. You just have to keep dusting your knees off, standing up, and trying again. And not only will that work because you're putting out good content, but it will create the grit and the tenacity that you need to keep going and build, in my case, you know, maybe your story could be better than mine someday. Build a multi-million-dollar company off of ebooks, which is crazy. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I never would have believed you, but I'm so grateful that I didn't give up at the beginning.
And if somebody would like to follow you along this journey, what would the best way to do so?
You can go to my website, nataliehodson.com. That's H-O-D like David, S-O-N.
We'll put a link below in the description box.
Yep.
And if you like this video, as always, click on subscribe and we'll see you in future videos.
Awesome.